So Ryan Heritage is with us today for our music ministry spotlight. Here, our first one for in this series that we're doing with Polyphony. And Ryan joined the staff at First Baptist Augusta, Georgia, this last September of 2019. And Ryan completed his studies for a bachelor's degree in church music at Erskine College, as I've learned, in Due West, South Carolina, which I didn't know Due West existed. So Ryan completed continued his education at Stanford University in Birmingham, Alabama, where in 2007 he earned his Master's of Music and Church Music there. And he's currently pursuing a doctorate in worship studies from Institute for Worship Studies in Jacksonville, Florida. Ryan has a connection with a member of our group here, Doug Haney, in that Ryan served as the music ministry resident at Wilshire Baptist Church in Dallas back in 2007 to 2009. And it was while Ryan was serving at Wilshire Baptist Church in Dallas as a music ministry resident that he and Lindsay met. And they've been married for over 10 years. They have 3 daughters, Bella, Randy, and Piper. After 6 months of service at First Baptist Augusta, Georgia, Ryan found himself with the challenges that all of us have faced since the middle of March of this year. This morning, Ryan will present to us how he has been maximizing the technological ministry at First Baptist Augusta, and he will offer an in-depth look at how he's using technology to better his music and worship arts ministry in these last few months of COVID-19. Ryan, welcome, and I'm going to hand it off to you.
Thank you, Kyle. I feel like I'm presenting a TED Talk or something like that with that introduction. Well, good morning. Kyle did a great job introducing me, so I won't do that. But I do want to say I have an educated musical background like most of us. However, what's more important for this morning's meeting is that I've been putting together videos and using audio applications on computers for about 15 years now. An important side note is that I'm not a professional with this, which is to your advantage because we have a similar background. I have approached it with a sense of trial and error. So today's presentation will essentially be a summation of hundreds of hours of educational YouTube videos filed down to what you might need for your ministry. Still, even with that, trial and error is a big part of the audio or video making process for us all. So I want to do a quick survey as we get started, just for fun. If you've got your video up and running, how many of you have, by show of hands, how many of you have services online or are broadcasting on local networks these days? Okay, all of us. Okay, all right. How many of you are pre-recording your services before Sunday? Just a few, okay. How many have recorded a video with a camera other than a phone? Okay. And how many have used a video editing program? All right. How many have used an audio program that simulates a recording studio? Okay, great. All right, so we've got room to work here, so that's perfect. So there's a wide array of talents here within this virtual room, and that's exciting that we can all grow from one another. The goal of today's session is to show you some steps in the production process so that you can use technology to better your ministry. By the end of this presentation, I hope to have some time to help you develop production application in your own ministry area, primarily within the budget that you have. If you have some experience with this field, which you've covered, some of us do, there will be some parts of this that may seem elementary, and I apologize, but the goal here is to build a strong foundation for all of us together. Before we get started with the technological aspects of the presentation, Um, I think it's important that we talk about the elephant in the room, and that is I want to approach this philosophically and theologically for us all. I know for myself, and I'm assuming for most of you, that at the beginning of this pandemic, our in-person service that turned into an online service began to feel like a production. And I've stressed in my career of philosophy on the importance of authenticity and the disdain for productions for performance sake. I'm not referring to Easter or Christmas musical productions. I'm simply referring to the difference between a performance and an offering. And yet here we are. Media viewed through a screen seems to be the primary way in which we reach people safely where they are and help them have a conversation with God. Robert Weber says that worship is a conversation. And then it goes back and forth. God calls us, we respond to that call. We talk to our fellow brothers and sisters, and there's a level of introspective dialogue. It's hard to have that over a screen. So I began to search for ways to take a performance and pull the viewer into what they are seeing. I believe, or at least I hope, that this makes this piece turn from something that they are watching into something that they can become engrossed in. This is the same hope that we have for our congregations when they watch our choirs sing. The choirs presenting an offering to God through Christ, empowered by the Holy Spirit, and the congregation is able to be part of that offering. That is my hope when I create presentation pieces for worship. Let me use the piece of the rotunda, or I call it the rotunda piece, as an example of this. Were most of you able to see that at some point over the past few weeks? If not, that's fine. But essentially, we have a rotunda in the back of our sanctuary, and it's a beautiful space to sing in. The choir here at First Baptist told me stories about singing in the rotunda as they process into worship throughout the years. They talked about the beautiful sound made when singing there and the effect the congregation would have by hearing it from the congregation's point of view, which is inside the sanctuary, and yet the rotunda is in the back through some doors. However, the congregation was never able to be in the rotunda with them. Everything that they heard was a distortion of what was really taking place. But with this video, the viewer, really the congregation, is now able to be in the middle, both figuratively and literally, and become immersed within this offering. So I say all of that to encourage you on the following methods of which I'll be teaching you, not as an unnecessary role in which you find yourself having to play in the months ahead, but instead consisting of the same type of passion that you have when you worked with choirs in rehearsal, striving for perfection in the hopes that it would aid the worshiper in this wonderful conversation. So let's jump into the nitty gritty on all these tech things that some of us may be fearful of or passionate about, excited for, whatever. Because of this technical criteria involved in this morning's presentation, what I really ask you to do is to unmute yourself when you have a question and feel free to blurt it out. All that's going to do is encourage us to learn from one another. There are no such things as stupid questions, only stupid answers. And that's left up to me this morning. So don't feel as though you're going to embarrass yourself. Plus, you may have a question that someone else wants to ask, but they may not want to. So please feel free to do that. If you want to produce a musical piece, like a presentation piece of either the handbell thing that I did or the rotunda piece that I did, first you need to understand what it consists of, and that is the audio, the video, and the presentation of both the audio and the video together. However, None of these three things are really recorded simultaneously. Okay. Each one is artistic in its own. Almost all of us could master the audio part of it as far as what we want to hear. Okay. Bringing technology in and mastering how to record it, it will most likely be the difficult part for us. Recording the video, and I'm making assumptions here. I'm speaking generically, but making the video is probably going to be new steps for some of us, that we've never done before. But then putting them all together is really going to be new. But you've got some things that you can pull from to help you, and of course, I'll help you this morning. But the first thing is people try to do all three of these things at the same time, and they end up spending lots of energy and lots of time trying to get that done, and that's going to be a waste of your time and energy. There are some tools that you need to have to be able to do this, and I could feel free to, if you don't have my email, I'll give it to you at the end of this. If you have questions, I can help you get some of these tools. You need a computer, obviously. If you've got Macs, that's great. If you have a PC, there are still programs out there that you can use that are compatible with PCs. The first thing that you need to do audio-wise is get what's called an audio interface. This is an example of one. This is a really, really cheap one. It's called, I'll zoom it in here for you. Audio interface. All right, this is a 2-channel interface. And what this is going to do is it's going to bridge the gap between your computer and your microphone. This way you can essentially have your own personal recording studio. Okay. This is a 2-channel interface. This runs about $100 online or in stores. The really good thing about this one is it comes with a code that you can use online to use Presonus's own recording studio. So if you have a PC or if you have a Mac and don't feel comfortable using GarageBand, which is what I'm going to be taking you through this morning, you can use that recording studio to help you do this. All right. So you need an audio interface, and the more channels that you want, you can buy larger interfaces. In fact, we just purchased one the other day that had 8 channels because we had something go wrong in our sanctuary and we needed to be able to input more than 2 channels at a time. You need a good microphone. Any questions about the interface before I move on?
Could you tell us the brand again?
This is Presonus. Presonus. This is about as cheap as they get. This is good for like a little in-home audio interface. If you want to get a really good interface, if you've got a larger budget, I suggest getting a Scarlett, Scarlett. In fact, I think I can find you.
I want to throw out there too, don't get a Behringer interface. They are a lot cheaper, and the quality is what you pay for. So don't do that.
I also picked up for about $30 something called iRig, because we're using a lot of iPhones, and it will connect to any computer, any iPhone. You have to use the dongle if you have a newer iPhone, but and it's worked really, really well, but it only has 1 channel. It will support phantom power though. So you can use any microphone.
Yeah.
It's called iRig, and it's worked really well, but it's limited because it's only 1 channel. So.
Yeah. And in case some of you don't know, phantom power is the type of power that you need to use to power some microphones. They're normally on the higher end microphones, so you've got to use phantom power with them. I posted a link there in the chat box of a really high quality 8-channel audio interface. If you've got the budget for it and you want to record using multiple microphones, more than 2, this is a good one. You need a good microphone. We already talked about that, or I already mentioned that you need a good microphone. Here's the one that we've been using. This is a Neumann microphone. This is a great microphone. It runs about $600 or $700. If you don't have the budget for this, there is, I've used these microphones in the past. I'm sure there's plenty of them, plenty of styles and brands out there. But I've used an AKG microphone. I think it's called a P220. It's what's called an omnidirectional microphone. It could be a studio mic, same type thing. What I like about the AKG is it has 3 presets on the microphone itself to direct how you want to pick up the audio. It has a cardioid direction, which is essentially, you know, straight on like a shotgun path that it slowly expands out. It has a figure 8 if you want to have 2 people or particularly 2 instruments. I've used it before and stuck it between 2 string players so that I can pick them both up, or the omnidirectional side where it just records in a circle. And that's pretty much what this Neumann does. You need a camera. And when I say camera, I'm talking video camera. However, if you've got a low budget, I'll tell you, I use this from time to time just for my own personal stuff. It's just a Nikon digital camera, runs about $300. It takes 1080 video as well. So it doesn't need to be something that breaks the bank. But in-house here for worship, we have cameras that run about, I think they're 3,000 to 5,000, but they take 4K footage. And that would be important depending on how you want to do some post-production video editing. We'll talk about that in a little bit. One thing that you can't go wrong with is a good tripod. If you want to look on B&H Photo, and of course, you know, you may have your own vendors out there. I'm posting the name of that company. Use whoever you have an experience with or have experience with and you like. But a fluid head tripod can do a lot of great things to really up your video game, so-called. You need a recording studio program or audio program. GarageBand is a good generic run-of-the-mill that comes on a Mac already. You need a video editing program. iMovie comes on Mac. I use both of those. The video that I made in the Rotunda, when we shot it with our own cameras, which were higher quality, 4K camera quality, or 4K quality cameras, I ended up just editing it in iMovie because we had all the footage already and it had the capability of doing it. But there are other video editing programs out there like Final Cut. It's a really great program and you can do a lot of stuff with Final Cut. Questions so far? All right, I'm going to go to screen share here.
Ryan,
Yes.
back to the quality of the camera. iPhones. Does it depend on the iPhone, or again? So you were talking about that digital camera had just purchased. That was a separate unit. Thoughts?
It depends on the video, but the newer iPhones, I think the iPhone, I've got a 8, it's decent, but the 10 is really good. And they make tripod stands out there for iPhones. If you want to do some still videoing, those would be really good. It depends on, when we get to the video aspect of this, we're going to talk about digital zoom. Basically, you know, you've got X amount of pixels in the screen that you're watching.
Right.
When you
Right.
digitally zoom in, you're making those pixels larger and larger. So the higher the quality that you can have with the camera, the smaller those pixels will be, so that when you digitally zoom in, your whole eyeball doesn't turn into 4 squares, you know, or something like that.
Right.
So
Right.
that's the importance. But if you're not zooming in that much digitally, and I can show you how to do some really good effects. And again, this is just through trial and error. Yeah, iPhone would work. I recorded with iPhone at my house when I've had to do a lot of these things on my own. Didn't even use the camera that I just showed you. So good question. All right, I'm gonna go to screen share. Kyle, it's asking, let's see. It's asking me to install the Zoom audio device. What is this? You know, Kyle and I worked on this the other day, and we had it working perfectly. And as we're giving a presentation on technology screws up. Can you still hear me and see me?
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to show you something that I did this morning, and we'll start with that. I went into the chapel space this morning, spent about 20 minutes, and I'm essentially going to make a video real quick, and you're going to walk through with me as I make this video. I've got GarageBand pulled up here. I use the interface that I showed you, the microphone and the camera that I showed you this morning. And quick preface, I did not warm up at all when I went to do this, so the audio is not that great. But that's actually to our advantage, or to my advantage, for showing you how to do this, because I can show you how to make things sound better than they really are. What I did is I recorded a melody to begin with. This is GarageBand. One thing I noticed in getting ready to present this program, when I was looking at all these controls up here, I thought about explaining these. It's funny because I think the last place that I've seen these kind of controls on regular things would be a tape deck. So it's funny how they integrate older technology with newer. Anyway, this red button right here is going to be what you're going to want to record on. And when you push play, it'll play whatever recording you've got. So, and again, stop me if you have a question. When I go to install a track, when I want to lay down a track or record something, you're going to open GarageBand, and it will probably throw up a program, throw up a beginning point for you. But this is pretty much what you'll see. I'm going to click on New Track, and it's going to say, hey, what type of track would you like to put? And for these purposes, it's got some beats in here that you could use if you want to, but we're recording something live. So we're going to use this. This would ask me which input I want to do. And I do not have my audio interface hooked up right now, but this would be the option of saying, hey, do you want to use your PreSonus audio interface that you've got if it were plugged in? And I would say yes. So I'm going to hit create, and then it's going to pop up a new track here for me. When I start to record, let's see, I'm going to take that off. When I start to record, what's going on right now is it's giving me one measure to begin with, actually two measures, and now I'm recording. So the voice that you see lining out right here is what's happening. Again, I understand this is elementary for some of us, but some of us may not have ever used this. So now I've got this track. When I go back to play it, it's muted. And there's the audio that we just recorded. Okay, I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to delete this whole track actually. So that's essentially what I started with. So I laid this melody down, and you should hear it. I'm hoping the audio is going to be okay through this program, but it was asking me a question here on Zoom, so we'll see.
Brian,
You'll get that. Yeah.
Did you remember to optimize the sound? You know, that option I showed you the other day. We were talking.
Yeah, I did. When I pushed that, it asked me for a password to do something through Zoom to make sure that the sound was optimized. So that was odd.
Oh, that is odd. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm thinking it's going to work. We'll find out. I'm just going to play the beginning of this melody so that you get an idea of what it is. And I've highlighted headphones right here, which is only going to allow us to listen to this melody and none of the other tracks that I've recorded.
My life flows on an endless song above earth's lamentation.
Okay, so I think most of us know that song. That's in the chapel, which already has a really good ambiance and reverb in the room. So there are no effects that are added to this piece. But I'm going to take this off, and we're going to add a few more tracks to it. I've already added them. And again, the good thing is that I didn't do a good job singing it, but you'll get an idea of what I'm doing here.
My life flows on an endless song
Okay, so I've laid down some oohs on top of that. The way that I did that is for the very first piece, all I did was sing the melody and recorded that with the microphone that I showed you. Then, after singing the melody, I put some headphones on, listened to the melody, and recorded an ooh per line. Like if I wanted to highlight this tenor one, you could hear sort of what I did. And I'm just laying that out. Now, there are some controls down here at the bottom of GarageBand. I encourage you to just start messing around with them and see what happens. You have people in your areas that can tell you about how to use EQ. Compressor essentially keeps, it compresses volume primarily so that nothing peaks too loud. Ambiance and reverb are what you most likely want as skilled musicians. That's going to give you the sound that we had in the rotunda. Although you'll notice there was already these two things present because of the room shape. This is essentially digital room shape if you wanted to make a room sound like something that it's actually not. Again, listen to just the melody and listen to the ambiance and the reverb within the room.
My life flows on an endless song.
There's a little bit there. GarageBand has got a lot of filters that you can throw on, and we're going to do that and make this sound even better. Okay, essentially we're cheating. We're going to throw on a classic vocal filter, and it's going to adjust these type of things that we've got already down here. We're going to go on and we're going to, well, actually, let's listen to what it does now, what it sounds like now with just that one filter.
My life flows on an endless song.
So it's created digital effects that will make it sound nicer than it really is. The good thing about my bad singing with the oohs is that now that I'm throwing on these digital effects and making this attaching more reverb, is that it kills some of the bad notes because you're not quite sure when it goes to the good notes, or vice versa. I'm not sure if I said that correctly, but I'll flow with it. Now listen to what it sounds like.
My life flows on an endless song.
Sounds like I'm singing in a stairway. Okay. So we're gonna. Are there questions about the audio?
I got a quick one. A couple
Yeah.
of quick ones. First of all, is it better to record dry and add it, or have you done it both ways and it really doesn't matter?
It depends on the song, but if the song is slow and you're going for reverb, I would prefer to record in the room that is not dry. What I think it was Chip that asked the question because I can't.
Yes.
See. Okay. What is referring to is dry. Dry has no reverb, no echo, not a lot of ambiance. Wet is the term that they use when the room is so saturated that the sound seems to linger. So if the song is supposed to sound like a cathedral, then I would record it in the wettest room that you can. And that's the good thing about what I said earlier about the audio, video, and video production. You can record audio wherever you want to. Go find the neatest room to sing in, record the audio in that room, and then go record the video somewhere else. And that's what we're going to look at now. So you should see, this is iMovie. And it's taking a second here. Oh man, I hope this works. I've got the pinwheel of death here. But this is video footage right here that I recorded in that room after I recorded the audio and put it together. I think I'm going to have to restart iMovie real quickly. It's giving me issues. Hopefully it'll come back up. While that's working on, I'll move to something else. Here's the Rotunda video that I shot. And what you're actually seeing when you watch this Rotunda video is you're hearing the audio that we were previously recorded in the room. And then we played it and lip sync the audio as we put the video footage together. Okay. So we didn't record the audio at the same time that we recorded the video. We're making a music video. All right. So this first part, we're all lip syncing right now for what you see, but the audio that you hear is authentic to the room. It just didn't happen at that time. Let's see if I can get iMovie pulled back up. Kyle, this may have been the issue that it had with Zoom and connecting. All right, good. We're working here. All right. This video that you're looking at through iMovie is what I shot just within 20 minutes or so. I'm standing here, I'm singing, I'm lip syncing to the audio that I just made. So the audio is very poor. However, I took what I did in GarageBand, I exported it to iTunes after I made it the way that I wanted to, and we're going to use it overlaying the video. Line this up here. The trick to this is you want to take the video that you actually recorded, this top video, and it has an audio line with it. We're going to take that audio and boost it way up, more than we actually would, only for the purpose of lining up the audio that I did in GarageBand, which is down here, with the audio of the video so that my lips are in time with what I'm trying to accomplish. You should be able to hear it. So there's a little bit of a delay, but it's not enough to really throw people off. So we're going to stop the audio of this video. I didn't have this on here previously, or it saved it to it. I inserted a transition. But let's watch what happens now that I've got the audio that I want to use and the video that I want to use together.
My life flows on an endless song of lover's lamentation.
That's just a still video of me singing. However, the chapel is a very beautiful space, so I thought it would be important to take some pictures and still images of parts of the chapel, and we're going to insert these into this other video so that we can segue back and forth. I like to line things up so that they are complete and so that you have segments of audio with video timed together. So I'm going to find this section real quick. All right, so that's the end of that phrase right there. I'll take this video, insert it right here. And now we're going to do some video effects. This video right here is laying on top of this video. And this icon right here in iMovie is going to ask me, how do you want to import this video into this one? So we're going to use what's called a cutaway. And essentially, we're cutting away from this video to this video for this amount of time, and then we're going to cut back away to this. So as we insert this in a cutaway, we're going to fade it in over the length of 1 second, should be fine. And you see it puts these little dog ears right here on the video. So this video will no longer take place, and the audio will still keep going. So let's see what happens now that I've done that. Excuse me, I needed to mute this audio of the video. Okay, now there's no fuzz. That's nice, it's a good still shot. Let's add even one more layer to it. Let's take this video and let's put in some video effects. This is digital zooming like I talked about. When you go, there are all these options that you can do with the video. in iMovie. This is a cropping feature, so it will ask you, do you want to fit this to the screen? If so, how would you like to fit it? You can crop to fill. In other words, you might just want this much of the image that you recorded. We're going to use what's called Ken Burns effect. You know you're really cool if you have an effect named after you. So what we're going to do with this Ken Burns effect is we're going to we're essentially creating what's called a pan, where we're panning from we're going to pan from right to left. It's a little difficult to see now that it's blacked it out. But as we start this, let's see what happens as we do it.
I hear the sweet, oh, far off hymn that hails a new creation.
So all I did was you could take a still shot. You don't have to have a video like I did. But that creates the illusion of using a tripod with a really slow pan from right to left. And you've still got the audio going on, but you're no longer seeing me. These are the type of effects that we as a culture have become accustomed to because of movie making magic, whatever you want to call it. Questions at this point? Okay. Let me show you something. Let me go back and show one more thing about video process. In movies, they don't use transitions like what I would suggest for what we're doing. Their transitions are harsh transitions. They go from one shot to another shot. Let's look at this scene from Dances with Wolves. You've got immediately, let's see, 4 different scenes, and it's the switch is really quick. So here's this shot, switches. And switches again. Okay. I don't suggest a harsh switch like that for the type of video that you might be making for your ministry, because it's too abrupt. So you're going to want to learn how to use transitions. When you click on transitions, it gives you all these options. After the first 4 transitions in iMovie, I would not even suggest using these. These are good for slideshows or something like that. In fact, if you watch the screen over here to the right, it'll show you how it transitions. And it takes one image and it swaps it to another. That's good for a slideshow, but not for movies. Let's say right here we want to put a transition in, and we want to do what's called a cross blur, which is very typical, and it's good for videos that we would make. So we've got this footage right here. We've just essentially cut it at this point, and it's going to cross blur. Okay, makes it blurry for a second and goes into the next transition. I used a lot of these in the rotunda shot. One more thing that I want to highlight. I talked about Ken Burns previously. Let's see, I'm trying to find this area that I had. Oh yeah, it is right here. Let's watch this shot right here and see what happens with the 2 Indians. Okay, now that's all I wanted to highlight. So as that shot goes across, you see these 2 Native Americans, and they are talking with one another. And the one on the right is trying to be patient and understand what Kevin Costner is trying to communicate. Let's use a video product, a post-product method to highlight what's actually going on. It's not actually excuse me, it's hard to do things and talk at the same time. It's not in here, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make the viewer focus on what he's thinking by doing this Ken Burns effect. See if it has a different effect on you now. You see how something simple like that really makes a huge difference? There was a line that I learned from one YouTube video that the camera has a voice too, and it's saying, look over here, watch this. This is important. These are the kind of things that we have the least amount of experience with as musicians. However, we have tons of experience with it by watching movies. So try to think of how to make your musical production look like a movie. Before we hop off the screen share, as I'm doing this, anybody have any questions?
Ryan.
Yes, sir.
I like that. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. You can stop that now.
Okay.
So yeah, I thought the transitions you were showing us were really interesting for that particular, American folk melody. But what if, because it was organic to the tempo and the style,
Yes.
but what if you were doing, Aaron Copland's Zion's Walls, or Paul Fettler's Singing to God, or something that was Baroque? Maybe you would do a different style of transition?
Yes, then I would use the harsh transition. I actually had that in my notes. If I was thinking of the example of every time I feel the Spirit,
Yeah.
that would be great to immediately go to someone else within a transition. So you're right. The transitions need to mimic the audio that the viewer is listening to. Okay? Because the beauty within the piece, there are going to be multiple things. You're going to have the beauty of the audio. We know how to replicate that really well, I believe. The video and the post-production are the areas in which we need to learn. I want to show, I am going to go back to the audio here in a second, but I want to show an idea that I had with the video that we didn't end up using in the rotunda, only because I couldn't match it with the audio well enough whenever we were doing it. But two things are going on in this layer. This is just raw footage. Okay, so the audio that you're going to hear is what we were lip syncing to in the room. So the thing that I like so much about this is the background seems to be moving slowly, but the foreground, because it's tiles, it's essentially gridded out for the viewer, is moving rapidly. So there are two effects. It was one of my favorite effects that I just never got to use. But these are the type of things that you want to try out and see if it works. Let me show you one more thing.
I just want to mention that you can vary the length of your transition if you want it longer or shorter. I think it's right click and just on the transition, and it'll pop up how many seconds you want the transition to be.
Absolutely. For example, so I'm back in the program here. So I'm in between these two slides. And then you can change the duration of that transition. One of the most important things, if you ever compile anything, I think it's important. This is my preference. Other people have different preferences, or you may have a different preference, but always fade to black at the end of it, just so that the viewer knows exactly where it finishes. Okay, video is over. That's better than just a harsh, hey, there's the end. This is a crane that I purchased, not just for this video, but it was definitely because of this video. Financially, this is about as cheap as they come. It was $400, but I thought the things that we could do with it are going to far outlive just that one video that we made. I would have made some changes to the Rotunda video after compiling it together, but it was because of this, it enabled us to take shots that were really fascinating. So for example, because we use that crane, I want to explain what I did with this opening shot. I'm fast forwarding here. I hope you can see that. The name of the piece was Still Thee by Lane Hagenberg. and she references the morning sun. And we have this beautiful architecture right here. And I thought, boy, that actually represents the morning sun. So we started with the room coming down. All the camera was doing on the crane was just lowering in the room, but it looks like it's pulling back. It's not actually pulling back. I used the digital zoom, so I focused in with the Ken Burns effect to begin with on the sun, and then I slowly expanded it with this shot so that we could have that. It looks like it's zooming out and lowering at the same time. These are things that you can do with. Oops. These are things that you can do with the video editing program. You don't have to have really fancy camera stuff. I could spend more time showing screen stuff and everything. I do want to highlight one quick thing on GarageBand, that even if you don't want to use, if you don't want to make video productions, this would be beneficial for you in your choral ministry, even after the pandemic. When you're wanting to introduce pieces and you want to get samples to your choir members of a song, find 4 of your really good singers and record them singing. You could put a mic in front of each one of them and record them, record their own track. And then when you want to highlight, when you go to export these audio files, let's say you want to make a CD for sopranos. Take the soprano voice and raise it up, and then lower the tenor, the alto, and the bass. What you're essentially doing is making a part predominant CD yourself. And so this voice will be louder than the other 3 voices, although they still will be able to hear them. Doug and I were talking about this briefly. You could also do this with a piano if you just wanted to do, you wanted to have the right pitches, tempo, rhythm. Whenever possible, I try to use voices because then you get text, tone, and inflection on top of the first 3. So I find those to be beneficial.
Pardon me, Ryan.
I'm gonna stop. Yes.
And maybe Doug can clarify. When you say piano, I thought earlier when Doug and I, the 3 of us were talking, it was he uses his MIDI keyboard and he chooses like flute or oboe or bassoon to play those parts.
Correct.
Right. So I had recorded the piano accompaniment as one track, and then I used a MIDI keyboard to insert the second voice specific part and used, a woodwind instrument. So they heard, again, I agree with Ryan that ideally there's a lot of benefit in hearing phrasing, diction. This is assuming you have good section leaders, right? And I'm sure Ryan does, and some of you do. But for a little pickup group that I'm about to start another project with, an ensemble where everyone's pretty good singer, I just wanted to reinforce their individual part, just a real quick rehearsal track, so they'll hear piano and then a MIDI line, and that becomes the track. I did that in GarageBand, and then I just exported it to SoundCloud. Real easy to share the links that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of this has been immersion by fire, but I want to allow this time for questions. This was a really quick snapshot of some of the things that I've been able to do throughout the years and putting it together. And I know that I was flying through it. There's a lot of technical stuff in there. Questions?
Ryan, did you record the Rotunda video all in individual voices, or did you record the 4 voices at once?
My audio director and I had an argument about that. She wanted to record all the voices individually, and I told her, no, I want you to stick one omnidirectional microphone in the center of the room so that we could get the blur of the sound as to what it would sound like if we were in a cathedral, okay? And I wanted the congregation, the viewer, to experience the room. When I said they were in the middle of it figuratively and literally, they really are. The crane is in the middle of the room and it's panning around the room. So the viewer feels for the first time like they're in the middle of this choral experience. So, good question.
And why was there an, I've got to follow up because I had that question too that Chip had, but to follow up on that, what was the argument? What was the case there, Ryan? Because I think I can speculate what it was, but I want you to speak into it.
Sure. So if you were to record the individuals in addition to the one omnidirectional mic, you would be able to understand and highlight the text a lot better, so the viewer could hear contextually what we're singing more than just the evocative feel that I was going for. Or if one singer's louder than another, you could match their voices a little bit better. Or if one singer's quieter than the rest of them.
Mm-hmm. So there's art. So there's benefits to both.
Yes.
There's give and take there. Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
In fact, there was I'm going to go back to a screen share just briefly, just to show the beginning of, let's see, because I demonstrated, I totally ripped this off of NPR, but I talked about the way that the room handles. So I'm using a microphone right here to be as clear as possible in the room. Hear what I'm describing. Okay, it was very clear, it was very crisp. In God's beauty in creation. I want you to hear what you could understand my text. But then I gave a little demonstration of a balloon, which you do need to go see on NPR. It's about Hagia Sophia. But then I speak in the room so that everyone can hear what it actually sounds like in the room. But here's what I actually sound like in the room. So that shows you the two audio differences. I apologize if it was really fast this morning for the, here, look at this. Now look at this. All right, look at this, you know. I'm curious to see, I want to know for some of you, do you have well, actually, let me go back and say this. You most likely have the capability to do this already within your setting. You personally may not want to do it, but there are people within your churches and within your settings that have the passion and the desire to put these type of things together. You may find one person who's an audio expert. You may find another person who's a video expert. I can guarantee you there are lots of 18-year-olds out there who make their own YouTube videos, and they would love to be able to get some raw footage of you and combine the audio that someone else puts together and do some fabulous videos for you. One thing I want to stress, and that is, don't be afraid to ask for help within these current times. I didn't know how to do this until 15 years ago, and I asked somebody to show me how to do things. And then I started playing around with iMovie. And then about 10 years ago, I started playing around with GarageBand and trying to figure out how to use these things to the best of my advantage. I'm still learning. Thankfully, I've got some really skilled, qualified people on staff that can help me, and they put these things together. So I know there are people within your settings that can do that too. It's just a matter of finding them.
Yeah, I want to mention, we got a young man in our church taking filmmaking at school, and he's got access to the whole Adobe suite. And so he's doing our stuff for us. And you may have someone like that. You maybe contact the school, somebody who just wants experience, may be willing to do all this for you. And that's a source I didn't even think about early on until, this kid's name came to my mind, and he's doing it all. So,
and typically, yeah, I agree, Chip, and I can think of my former place where I used to be, where Dylan Reese here in our grouping is now at Westray Baptist, has that kind of person in college, graduated college just now with similar kind of degree, background, and passion, and the know-how to do it since that he was in junior high was doing it. And there usually probably are someone in our youth groups that maybe they're not the active youth choir, the most passionate about youth choir, but they are passionate about this, you know. And it may be a child of someone that's practically, I've noticed in our junior high kids, animation is something that they've been playing with these last 4 months during the pandemic. They're bored while they're bored at home, between, you know, classes and everything. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities there, I think, that we just need to start opening our eyes and kind of gauging our congregation and the families there, particularly with young people. Any other questions? Of course, Ryan is available for follow-up. I'm going to speak boldly and just say that we obviously this is a family here. Doug Haney and Doug's expressed this better than I can at the moment, that how this has kind of been an organic experience of seeing Polyphony kind of as it's been rebirthed, with our meeting in Atlanta at Mercer University, in Macon, at Mercer in February. We never dreamt then where we would be in March and till now. And it's just been beautiful to watch what's happening here. I've been reading, I wanted to close today because it's 11, but I wanted to close today. I've been reading, you know, in spare time that I tried to make sure I have to take care of, and as all of us are trying to take care of ourselves, to physically and emotionally and spiritually. I've been reading Boys in the Boat about the 1936 Olympic team from the University of Washington, the rowing team, and their quest they ended up winning the gold at the Olympics in 1936. But through the 30s, this group from University of Washington, they were just teenagers that came to University of Washington, were recruited by the coach, whose name I'm going blank on, Ubrick was the last name. And it's a beautiful story, and it's written well by the author's Daniel James Brown. And I just recommend it if you need something that's to get your mind off things and just have a beautiful escape. But the builder of the boats was, Ubrick had hired a man by the name of George Yeoman Pocock, who it was essential that the boats obviously be built to be able to be competitive. It wasn't just about the team, but the boat they were in, kind of boat. And there's a quote by Pocock that has been resonating with me during this time, and I share with you as sort of a benediction today. Pocock says, "It's hard to make the boat go as fast as you want. The enemy, of course, is resistance of the water, as you have to displace the amount of water equal to the weight of the men and the equipment. But that very water is what supports you, and that very enemy is your friend. So is life. The very problems you must overcome also support you and make you stronger in overcoming them." So I leave that with you and this final benediction. Glory to God, whose power working in all of us here can do infinitely more than we can ask or imagine. Glory to God from generation to generation in the church and in Christ Jesus forever and ever. Amen. Group, peace of Christ be with you. Ryan, thank you so much. And we'll do follow up through emails. We'll share all that information. But peace of Christ be with all of you.